Yeah, you know.
Right, apparently the problems have been ironed out, so we're good to go. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Planning Applications Committee, 30th of September. We're at the Civic, and welcome everyone present at the meeting in the Civic Centre, for those observing the meeting on Microsoft Teams. Fire alarm procedure, there are no fire drills expected this evening, so in the event of the alarm sounding, please quickly make your way out of the building. There are 3 exits from this room which members can use to vacate the premises. Please switch mobile phones onto silent or switch them off. If you do have any calls, take them outside the meeting room. Not leave any bags unaccompanied and or report any unaccompanied bags. Remember to take any bags with you when you leave the meeting and business is concluded. This meeting may be subject to filming or audio recording by others in accordance with the Council's filming protocol. Anyone who remains in the meeting following this announcement will be deemed to have consented to allow their image to be recorded and or best. Move on to the agenda. Item 1, apologies for absence. Apologies.
Yes, we have, Chair. Apologies for absence were received from Councillor Hammersley with the substitution of Councillor Swinscoe, Councillor Answer, Councillor Moxon and Councillor Metcalfe and Councillor Abbs.
Are there any other apologies from the floor? Yeah. Thank you. Item 2, declaration of interest. Yeah. Councillor Swinscoe.
We're declaring interest in application for, as I know the applicant.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm also declaring an interest in planning application for on the agenda. I sit on cabinet with the applicant and feel that there may be some intentional bias, so I should believe in the room.
You, Councillor Jackson. Councillor Dow.
Yes, Chair, thank you. Item 4 on the agenda, I also know the applicant.
Councillor Stevenson.
Well, I guess similar to us, the applicant's councillor, so I'm aware of the councillor as well.
Councillor Tempest Mitchell.
Likewise, Chair.
As Chair, I also know the applicant, but having checked with legal, providing we've not had prior discussions with the applicant, quite all right for us to stay in committee and listen to the report and make a decision. Appreciate Councillor Jackson sitting on the cabinet, feels she needs to leave the room. Thank you. Item 3 then, minutes of the last meeting. Do I have a proposer?
Yes, Chair.
Councillor Bell. And Councillor Stevenson. We accept them as a true record. Councillor Jackson. Any abstentions or objections? No. Minutes to approve them, thank you. I'll move on to agenda item 4. Councillor Jackson, read the room.
Can we get them?
Yeah, we'll let you actually. So item 4 on the agenda, planning application reference 2023-0361 to help Backland planning application for 3 number detached bungalows with access, layout and scale to be determined, and some matters, appearance and landscaping reserved. But the gables well enough new and still good house. And I just make the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. Can we go through the next, please, yeah, to on the top, yeah. So this is an application seeking outline plan permission with access, layout, and scale to be determined for 3 number of detached 3-bedroom bungalows and an internal access road.
Excuse me, Chair, could you get close to your microphone?
Yeah, yeah. Is it working?
It's working, Billy.
Right, okay, yeah. Right, so I'll start again then. Yeah, so this is an application seeking outline plan permission with access, layout, and scale to be determined for 3 number of detached 3-bedroom bungalows and an internal access road. The proposal would also include demolishing the existing conservatory of the gables. The application site is located at the end of Wellman Avenue and covers a gross area of approximately 0.26 hectares. It currently contains a residential dwelling known as the Gables, an access road to the dwelling, and a number of outbuildings. The access is located on the northeastern boundary of the site, and the site slopes down from the south to north overall, as well as east to west near the northern boundary. The application has been referred to the planning committee as the applicant is a member of the council, as well as due to the number of objections received. Late items. Since the report was published, the Highway Authority has commented that the amended plans do not properly address the Highways Authority's comments dated the 9th of September this year, as tandem parking provision is retained for the dwelling on plot 3, and that the applicant should amend the scheme to avoid tandem parking on plot 3. The Highway Authority has recommended that planning application should not be determined until this issue has been addressed. I will address this comment during the access section of my presentation. The application site is located within Mansfield urban area, identified by policy S2 as the most suitable location for new housing development. The proposal is therefore considered to be acceptable in principle, subject to no other material considerations indicating otherwise. Starting off with layout and scale. A total of 3 number of new dwellings in the form of a 3-bedroom bungalows and an internal access road has been proposed. The placement of plot 1, plot 3, and the proposed internal access road are all considered to be acceptable. Plot 2 would be located to the north of the proposed access road and close to the northern boundary of the site. It would be in an east-west arrangement, similar to the Gables, but is similar to all closest properties on Marcos Avenue. The surrounding residential development is in a fairly regimented layout, where most dwellings front onto the highways and the external private amenity spaces are to the rear of the dwelling. Moreover, there's a current distance from the rear elevation of the closest properties in the locality on Marcos Avenue to the elevation of the gable. However, within the proposal, the closest distance between the side elevation of plot 2 and the rear elevation of number 117 Marcos Avenue would only be 9.2 meters, while the distance separating plot 2 from the gables would be approximately 6.3 meters. It is therefore considered that the proposal would diminish these characteristics and that the relationship between plot 2 and existing properties would be considered as uncharacteristics by virtue of a much reduced separation distance. Can we go to the next slide, please? So this is the elevations drawing. Turning to scale. It is considered that the proposed scale of plot 1 and plot 3 are acceptable. Plot 2 would be located on a slope, and this plot would be approximately 5.7 meters above ground level at the highest points as per this submitted indicative elevations drawing. Can we go to the next slide? All properties on Marcos Avenue in close proximity to plot 2 are all sitting on ground levels lower than the application site. Number 117 Marcos Avenue, the closest property to plot 2, is a bungalow with the highest ridge level at 88.413 meters and the east level at 85.918 meters. Both of the measurements are AOD above ordinance datum. The scale and bulk of plot 2 would be accentuated by the topography of the site. Can we go to the next slide, please? So this is the section drawing showing number 117 to the left, proposed plot 2 in the middle, and the existing gables property to the right. And then if we go to the next slide, please. So this is a photo with the left-hand side structure being the existing conservatory of the gables, which is proposed to be demolished. And then there's a hatch in the middle which you can see from the drawing at the bottom left, which is where plot 2 is going to be located. And the trees in the distance is T5 on the drawing to the left, and that's the boundary with the neighboring properties down there. Given the approximate 9.2 meters distance separating plot 2 from the rear elevation of number 117, it is considered that plot 2 represents an characteristic scale of the locality and would appear as unduly overbearing to number 117. This will be further explained in the following parts of the presentation. As explained, this is the photo showing plot 2. If we go to the next photo. Yeah, this is a similar photo showing the topography of the portion of the site where plot 2 is proposed. So there's that hatch. There's that hatch on the left and then that tree in the distance with the boundary of the site on the right-hand side. And then if we go to the next photo, this photo shows the area from the opposite direction using the tree as the reference point, and the two-story detached property would be number 119. And then number 117 will be located to the other side of it. It is considered that the proposal to provide 3 number of detached 3-bedroom bungalow is too intensive for the application site with the retention of the gables. The layout of the proposal would appear as cramped, and the scale of plot 2 is considered to be incongruous due to its massing and bulk, the topography of the site, and the relationship with adjacent properties. And can we go to the next slide? In terms of impacts on amenities of the existing neighbours around the proposed development, plot 2 will be located to the southeast of number 117. Given the height and scale of plot 2 and the separating distance, it is considered that plot 2 would result in unacceptable overbearing impacts and significant adverse loss of light impacts to 117. There will also be some impacts to numbers 115 and 119, but such impacts are not as great compared to the impacts on number 117. If we go to the next slide, should be the photos of the front elevation of 117. The roof and the ridge level of the gables is in the background circled in red. And if we go to the next slide, this would be a wide angle shot of the rear garden of number 117. It should be noted that number 117 currently features a rear garden of a limited size that is bounded by a hatch on the common boundary with the application site. And it is understood that this hatch is subject to a remedial notice requiring this section of the hatch on the boundary with number 117 to be maintained to a height not exceeding 2.8 meters above ground level at all times, due to the impacts of the hatch on the living conditions of occupiers at number 117. It is considered that, however, the proposal will not raise an unacceptable impact upon neighboring occupiers at other residential properties in the locality. It is also considered that the use of planning conditions would be able to ensure the amenity of future occupiers of the proposal, and the proposal would not harm the amenity of future occupiers at the gables. Turning to access. The proposed access road is considered to be acceptable. The currently submitted proposal depicts 2 number of allocated parking spaces for each of the plots, in line with the highway design guide. It is acknowledged that the latest comments from the highway authority is still concerned about the use of tandem parking at plot 3, despite the applicant has submitted amended drawings to extend the length of the driveway. It is still considered that this issue can be resolved. In any event, development should only be prevented or refused on highways ground if there would be an unacceptable impact on highway safety, or the residual cumulative impacts on the road network would be severe as per paragraph 115 of the National Planning Policy Framework. It is considered that this issue would not form the basis of the refusal. With regard to biodiversity, drainage, and flood risk, it is considered that the proposal will be acceptable subject to the use of planning conditions. To conclude, it is considered that residential development on this site is acceptable in principle, and that the proposal would not result in unacceptable impacts on highway safety. However, it is considered that the proposal amounts to overdevelopment of the site, would appear as cramped within the application site and fail to respect the character of the area in terms of layout and density. Plot 2 is incongruous due to its massing and bulk, accentuated by the topography of the site and the orientation of the dwelling. This would result in unacceptable overbearing impact and significant adverse loss of light impacts to number 117 Marcus Avenue, in conflict with adopted Mansfield District local plan policies P2 and P7. On balance, this application is recommended to be refused as planning permission. Thank you.
For your report. Jump brothers again, let's try to follow it. Right, we've got speakers on this report, so I'd like to invite Malcolm Watts. You want to speak? Good night, one you've got.
Hello.
You've got 4 minutes.
But my objection is the use of the sewerage line which passed through my property. Over a number of years of the blockages of me getting swamped up with sewage. The sewerage line was put in for one property alone, put in on another 3 properties, which another property was allowed to join a line unknowing to me from number 27 Peafield Lane. It passed down through my land. The sewerage line, there is a very sharp bend in it, which a drain rod can't get around it. It passed through my back garden, down the side of the house, to a manhole. Then in front of the house, where there's a step in the sewerage line, into another sewerage line. Before any decision is made on this property getting passed, there should be a full survey done on the sewerage line, because it's not capable of taking 5 properties. And I don't see why I should have to clean up sewerage of 5 properties as it is. And the other complaint is the surface water. I am at the lowest point. When they put the roads in, and all the water off the roads, but when it rains like it's coming now, you know, I'm going to be flooded out with the surface water coming down to the lowest point. That's all I got to say about it.
Do members have any questions of the speaker? Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you for your insight on the site already. You mentioned surface water and how you see that being an issue. Can you tell me if you already have an issue with surface water coming from that area?
No, because there's plenty of grass to soak it up. But once there's tarmac down and where the water goes, it drains down the side of the road. You know, and I'm at the lowest point, and the earth only soaks up so much water until there's floods. We see that on the telly today with massive floods through the country.
Councillor Tempest, can you?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your insight. Can you just tell us what number you live at on what road? I didn't get that. Thank you. I live at 123 Margaret Avenue. That's good, Chair.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. So the main issue obviously for you is the storage types, basically. Yeah. So if they were fixed, if this went ahead, yeah, and they were fixed, would you have an objection if you could? No. Yeah, I would object to it. Yes. Why should I have my property ripped apart? You know, I've had enough problems with it now as it is. You know, I don't see why I should have my property ripped about. Yes, for people to build properties behind me, and I get flooded up with surface water. This sewer right, I've only got a downstairs toilet on it, which I can soon turn around onto my original line. This sewerage line is for the cables and 27 Peafield Lane.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions, speaker? Okay, thank you, Martin.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to invite Philip or Kevin Shipford. You guys, please, when you turn your mind, I've got 4 minutes.
Where's the camera? No, so where's the camera? There. Okay. Yeah. I'd like to speak on behalf of my parents, Mr. and Mrs. Shipley, on 117 Martins Avenue. They're a couple who are at their wits' end and simply wish to sit safe on their back garden in their retirement. They are very concerned on the following facts. The building works proposed is right up to the fence, inches away from where my parents sit and enjoy the garden with visitors and family. Noise. The works will be so close to the house, they'll be able to hear the noise indoors. Dust and detritus. The works will be so close to the house, they will not be able to have windows and doors open. Mrs. Shipley has chronic asthma and with such close proximity, the dust will have a negative effect on her health. Drainage. Not an expert on drainage, but my parents seem to already get standing water on the patio from the gables, so drainage is already an issue. Privacy and light. Thank you, Howard, pointing that out. The proposed buildings will have an overbearing, dominant, negative impact on my parents' privacy and access to light. There is an acute elevation up to the proposed bungalows from my parents' back garden. A side note on privacy. I have been asked to keep to the fact but wanted to share this photo of the leylandii which were planted by the gable at the back of my mum and dad's property. My parents' home. Mr. and Mrs. Callahan stated they needed them for privacy, so I think it's relevant to this committee at this stage, looking at what we are today. It took over a decade to process the legals and for the tree to be cut to a correct height. Speaking on behalf of Welwyn Avenues, number 6, 10, 12, 14, 16 and 20. Number 6, Mrs. Green, noise, traffic disruption during works and ongoing after. Number 10, Mrs. Wood, access issues, additional traffic. Block Road is ongoing concern due to being a small cul-de-sac. Number 12, Mrs. Clark, traffic concerns during building works and after, such as small cul-de-sac. Number 14, Mrs. Fletcher, congestion on the streets during and after works, not enough parking on proposed site, so any visitors to deliveries will park on Welwyn. Mrs. Fletcher is on dialysis 3 times a week and is to give witness regarding the ambulance access if required. Number 16, needs, drainage issues, traffic congestion before and after, too large for Welwyn to cater for. Number 20, Mrs. Miles, road too narrow for current parking, never mind additional traffic and trucks. Also noise. Right, questions? In general, the cul-de-sac is small, tight and congested. How can you think you're right to have more traffic, noise, dust and disruption and drainage issues? Traffic. Looking at the access on Welwyn, residents park legally outside their own property. Vans and ambulances can access, but really cannot see how building traffic can get through. I want to ask you a question. Do the residents have to move their cars each time Mr. and Callahan will need a truck delivery? Based on the approval today, I would suggest the Welwyn residents take the community stance and simply carry on the normal and let access to the side be an issue for Mr. and Mrs. Callahan. Safety. Large trucks and small cul-de-sac is a recipe for disaster, and the elevated position in close proximity over Marples Avenue properties are huge concern. If the proposal is approved, we can see who's voted for this. And I want to say, is it fair to say that you and you alone stand accountable for any injuries or health issues due to the building works. And lastly, as councillor Anne Callaghan,
30 seconds.
the community would like you to listen to them and stop this. Ironically, the person the community should be able to talk to and help and advise is you. That's not happening, is it? Why has no one picked this up as potential conflict of interest? Obviously, you have tonight. In conclusion, Melbourne and Marples are a community which offers many reasons why the proposed building was should be refused yet again. As you know, the majority of the affected are elderly and want to see an end to this proposal.
Time.
And maybe you should think about the community you represent and have a word with Mr. Callaghan. Thank you.
Do members have any questions of the speaker? Councillor Stevenson.
Thanks, very passionate. Just clarify, if you speak on behalf of parents, which property is that there?
17 Marples Avenue.
Thank you. Your question.
And why there's no more questions? There must be something. We're here talking about,
Unfortunately, no.
talking about
If the
a proposal that's been rejected by planning
you have
committee.
4 minutes to make a presentation.
No, but I'm just saying,
And
the planning committee has rejected this, and then now we're brought back in.
I'm
Do you want it
sorry,
again?
if you're going to carry on speaking, I'll stop.
I'm done.
Okay. If there are no questions. Right, the next speaker is Anne Callaghan. So, again, if you'd like to put your speaker on, you've got 4 minutes to say.
Well, I'd like to address this committee in regards mainly or especially to plot 2 and also to the planning officer, Harold Cheng. Plot 2 would be located north of the proposed access road and close to the northern boundary of the site. It would be in an east-west arrangement similar to the Gables. And obviously you break your statement out. So what I'll go into is our response to that. The orientation of plot 2 has little significance from a street perspective. The site is bounded by high hedges and trees and will never be seen in the same context as the properties on Marples Avenue. It will only be seen in the context of the driveway used by the development itself. You've also stated wraparound external amenity causing significant impact. The dwelling has a rear garden, 153 metres square and decking area. The land to the side is the result of keeping the building as far away from the existing dwelling's boundary as possible. It will comprise of a lawned area leading to the existing conifers. Hard for us to understand how this causes significant harm to the area. You said the application site is unusual as it's backland site. Well, what about all the properties on Leeming Lane, Scotswood, Park Hall? They're all backland sites. Also, in response to the planning officer, there is a distance from the rear elevation of the closest properties in the locality on Marples Avenue. Right? You stated it's only 9.2 metres, while the distance separating plot 2 from the gable would be 6.3. For clarity for the planning, I would just like to say plot 2 has a maximum distance of 11 metres from 117, and there is a 2.9 metre hedge between the two plots. It also complies with the 25 degrees test from the centre of the neighbour's window, commonly used in the scenario. There are no windows in plot 2 which face this direction, and the roof design is hit with a shallow pitch. The gables has no window facing plot 2 when the conservatory is removed. And again,
responding to the planning officer, while the principle of residential development on the site is considered to be acceptable, it must ensure that it respects the existing character of the area. Well, I believe the council is arguing that the character of the area is that of linear development, fronting the surrounding streets, and the development does not respect the local Mansfield plan. Policy 2 states development will be supported provided it creates a strong sense of place and is inclusive and accessible and appropriate to it in its context in terms of layout, scale, density, detailing and materials. Through A, respect to property. The Gables is clearly of individual character and sits in a large plot and doesn't have a street frontage, contrary to the surrounding character. The project seeks a modest development, so I don't see where you've got that problem. The proposed site exceeds those of the dwellings on both Marples Avenue and Welwyn Avenue. Our curtilages are going to be 500 metres. Marples Avenue is only 200 to 300. So where's the crampness? I would suggest it's not the Gables.
Do members have any questions for the speaker? There are no questions. Yeah. And as the no cross talking in the chamber. Do members have any questions of the officer? Councillor Swinscoe.
I've heard speakers speak quite passionately about this, and one of the biggest issues seems to be it has to be 117 from plot 2. So one is saying that there's it's going to be overbearing and it's going to stop light, etc. And then I've got the applicant who's saying it won't cause anything because it won't even be, that's also, which one is it?
Well, I think that's a matter of judgment for people to make tonight, really. The officer report's quite clear that officers consider that the proximity of Plot 2 to 117 Marples Avenue is it's too near and it would be overbearing. And this really is in relation to the topography of the site, as you can see from the section plan here, how the site slopes down. So in terms of orientation as well, as the sun comes round, I'll just get the plan up. So the sun comes round this way, like that. So it's the casting of the shadow over 117 that is also of a concern. So at the end of the day, I think it is a planning judgment, this one. There's no hard and fast rules in terms of distances between dwellings particularly. It's looking at the character of the site, looking at the proposal and assessing the impact that Plot 2 could potentially have on 117 in particular.
Chair, there's two questions on me, and I'll start with what was my second, just in regards to Councillor Swinscoe's. So that slide there, if you can keep that slide up, the orientation and the angle that it's taken from appears to be from the back of the fence. Would it be standard in an application to look at the orientation from there rather than perhaps from the angle of the property itself?
I believe that's a 25-degree line draw from one point, and just double check the measurements. Yeah, that's a 25-degree line drawn from 1.05 meter above finished floor level of number 117, if that's the line, the red line you're referring to. So that line is drawn from
So that this is a cross section going across the bottom of plot 2 really. So it's basically showing 117. Well, isn't it? 117 over there. Yeah, it's and then it's showing the proposed plot 2, and then it's showing the gables. So it's going across, and it shows the difference in terms of the topography of the site as you come down.
I think if you go back one slide as well and zoom into plot 2.
Which one?
Yeah, there should be a pink line. Let's see. Yeah, but that's that pink line showing where that cross section is taken from.
Just to follow up on and address that first point, it seems odd that you would draw it and then have it showing the person standing what would be like the boundary of the property. But I get your point, and it's not a massive part of what my question was anyways, it was just what I picked up on that. So the next part was there's in terms of the speakers, there's been some significant concerns raised in regards to sewerage and surface water. In regards to surface water, I noticed in the report there was mention of installing a number of soakaways, which I would expect would be your answer in regards to the surface water. I couldn't see much in terms of sewerage in the report. Is there, could you elaborate on in regards to sewerage and foul water in regards to the questions specifically raised from the first speaker in regards to that going around it, the tight corner and that type of thing? The sewerage, please, thank you.
The submitted application form stated that post storage would be disposed by the main sewer. Because this is an outline application and given the size of the application size and scale of the development, it is considered that the use of a planning condition requiring detailed drainage plans for the disposal of those surface water and foul sewage prior to the commencement of the development would be acceptable. So hopefully that covers both of them.
I could just add to that, the foul sewage would be under the control building regulations, so they would have to be satisfied that it does discharge correctly and flows the appropriate distance, etc.
Thank you.
Councillor Swinscoe.
At the moment, it's outline planning commission, so if whichever goes, is there still that opportunity then for further planning, the planning committee? So there are obviously significant concerns about plot 2 amendment from members.
So in terms of this application, it is an outline application, but with outlines you can also consider the reserve matters. And in this circumstance, because it's for 3 dwellings, we have requested as officers the determination of layout and scale, as well as access to be determined. So tonight members have to consider obviously the principle of the development, the layout of the development, the scale of the development and the access arrangements. So the only ones that are reserved for future consideration would be appearance and landscaping.
Councillor Tempest Mitchell.
Thank you. I think my first question was about sewage, and I think the answer to that is you don't have a problem with it as long as it's fixed, and that'll be building regulations in any case. Yeah. Second Chair, does the council, does the planning department have any issues with traffic concerns? And obviously that would be NCC highways. Is there any objections traffic wise?
No, the latest comments from Highway Authority have mentioned has only commented on the parking provision for plot 3, which they advised that tenant parking should be avoided for plot 3. But at an officer level, it is considered that this issue can be resolved. And as per paragraph 115 of the MPPF, development should only be prevented or refused on highways grounds if there will be an unacceptable impact on on highway safety or the residual cumulative impacts on the road network would be severe, and no highway safety has not.
Right, thank you. And lastly, does I put these two together, does the council have any issues with, I suppose, the noise and the traffic from the actual construction, if and when it went ahead?
So the environmental health team has been consulted and they have not raised any objections, subject to a condition restricting hours of work during construction and delivery of materials onto the site. A condition requiring an environmental management plan to be submitted prior to the commencement of the development, as well as a condition that relates to land contamination.
In the future.
Any further questions? Just like to ask one myself, this is an outline application. I've seen many outline applications in the past. It's been put in as an outline with the scale and layout and access being determined tonight. Could officers just explain the relevance of that in terms of this this particular application for outline planning permission, i.e., would it mean that the full planning application would have to be exactly as has been submitted today, or is it still subject to change or alteration, as most outline applications are?
So in terms of outline applications, you can submit an outline application with some matters to be reserved, no matters to be reserved, or one or two matters to be reserved. In this circumstance, an outline applications in general, the local planning authority's case officers can ask for some reserved matters to be submitted with the outline application once it's been submitted. And the reason in this case was because planning officers didn't have too much concerns over two dwellings on this site. But the third dwelling, we had concerns over the impact of plot 2 on 117 Marples Avenue. So we asked for layout to be considered and also the scale. So you can fully assess the impact on the existing properties. So in terms of the next obviously is an outline application, and a reserve, if granted, then a reserved matters application would have to follow, or reserved matters applications would have to follow. But they would only be considering appearance and landscaping. So with this outline, members are considering access, the layout of the dwellings and the scale of the dwellings. And they would be, if members decide to grant the application, they would be granted with this application.
Start on to that, and does it mean that the dwellings that were put through as its outline application would have to be constructed as they've been put through, or is it subject to change or in appearance?
The appearance of the dwellings, so how they actually look there could change. So like window detailing, or the bricks, or you know the way they actually appear to look could change, because that's a reserved matter. But what is fixed is the location of the dwellings, so where those dwellings are actually sited, and also the scale. So that's in terms of the height really of the properties that would be fixed.
Okay, explanation. Are there any other questions of officers? I don't see any. Could I have a proposer and seconder to the recommendation contained in the report? Councillor Stevenson, Councillor Bell. I'm now in debate mode. like to make any comments? Councillor Stevenson.
Thank you. Like I say, quite a lot in this chamber, rely heavily on the report in front of you, and regardless of who the applicant is, I think you need to try and see it as objectively as you can. Again, on this one, the recommendation is refusal. If I can see in the report and what I'm reading and from the development itself, that those reasons are genuine, then I feel like it would be the right thing to support the officer recommendation. And so I will go with the recommendation on this one. I will be looking to refuse planning. Thank you.
Councillor Bell.
As my colleague said, yeah, it's in the detail is in our document. One thing that does concern me, we're reading through, as you suggested, can we bring it back alteration? Can we alter the format of the properties? It just outweighs what was said. And one thing that does concern me, I spoke to the refugee guide this morning, and their concern is that it's a tight area as it is. And they said that if there's two cars parked, and sometimes they have to come back the following day, then I don't know if my colleagues don't really realise, but that's what they told me. It happens if it's the cars are parked, they can't get up, so they have to come back the following day or 2 days later and empty the bins. My only concern is if we do this, if this permission is granted, would it be even more concern to our refugee collection? Thank you, Chair.
Any other comments? Councillor.
I must say I'm struggling with this one. It just seemed that, you know, all the research about acceptable on this last apartment, but where it was put down reserve matters when it could have been put down, made the plan so that it could have been changed. So I am struggling with this one.
Councillor Swinscoe. Any other comments?
No.
I likewise have problems with it. On the same principle, because reading the report, it's acceptable. But plot 2 is the development contention, and the fact that it's been made a formal application makes it all the more important. I would have thought it should have come to us an outline application with all matters to a full planning. What's been put forward. So, are there any other comments before we decision? No. Okay. I will now put the motion to a vote on a show of hands. All those in favour of the recommendation, which is to refuse, please shout. Okay. Any abstentions? Those against? Thank you. So motion was carried 3-4, 2 against, and the application is being refused. Refusal on those to go to the applicant. Thank you. So just to recap, the recommendation was to review. So planning application reference 2023-0361 outline planning application for 3 number detached bungalows with access, layout and scale to be determined, some matter of appearance and landscaping reserved, cables, well enough. Company in Maxwell Woodhouse has been refused after. Just ideal position.
Don't you dare talk to me like that, and you might have talked to my grandchildren like that, but you went wrong. And they have to, you're wrong now. Disgusting you are. So I'm disgusting. Because you're absolutely disgusting, and you're absolutely disgusting as well. Well, it's just like you then, yeah.
Just
like, yeah,
Yeah, I think that,
Excuse me, Chair, am I allowed to ask why I didn't get an answer to the question I asked? No. I'm going to claim this. So.
You vacate the room. The procedure is that this was an outline application, but it's been refused, so it would have to come back in for it.
I thought you said it's a full application.
No, it's an outline application, but if we passed it as it's, well, that would have been the full application. The 3 dwellings would have been in that location.
Thank you, Ryan. Don't we want to withdraw again?
Can I just go back to that? The principle of development on that land is still, yeah.
So we've done it again and again and again.
Yeah, it's up to the applicant to
We're just going to
change
keep
it.
going.
Well, they've got to put something else.
The legal process.
But we can't really debate that. Yeah.
Well, the council need to know what they put these rentals through. And it's all right saying, I've got an interest, and I went on the roof.
Planning is a very emotive subject.
Come on, Dad. Come on. Yeah. Thank you. So you can. Well, actually, you represent those. Actually,
Right, that's calm down. We'll move on to item 5, agenda item 5, which is the planning application, partial change of use, 2 to 3 floor plan of a detached garage, used class C3 to a beauty room as sui generis. May I ask the officer to make a report, please?
And come to the next is the layout plan. Now, this is an application seeking planning permission to change the use of 2/3 of the existing detached garage at number 57 Wakefield Road into a beauty room. The application has been referred to the planning committee due to the number of objections received. Can we go to the next slide, please? This is about the property.
Sorry, Chair, I can't hear again.
Yeah, I think getting closer to your mic. Yeah, please, Howard. Can't hear you.
So I'll start again then. So this is an application seeking planning permission to change the use of 2/3 of the existing detached garage at number 57 Winsfield Road into a beauty room. The application has been referred to the planning committee due to the number of objections received. Can we go to the next slide? It's a photo of the detached garage in red. Number 57 is a detached 2-story residential property located towards the end of Swansfield Road, the residential cul-de-sac. The detached garage is located on the northeastern portion of the site. The application site currently benefits from a driveway to the front of the property and a drop curb access off Wakefield Road. Let me go to the next slide. So this is the garage. The beauty room is proposed to be operated from 9 AM to 7 PM Monday to Friday and 9 AM to 12 noon on Saturday only, on an appointment only basis for a maximum of 5 number of customers per day. An off-road parking space has been allocated for the customers, and a 30-minute space will be blocked off in between customers' visits to allow for cleaning and hygiene. In terms of external alterations, the existing garage door is proposed to be replaced on a like-for-like basis, and the existing drive is also proposed to be extended. Can we go to the next slide, please? So this is the proposed layout plan. Late items. A further representation has been received since the report was published, raising concerns in relation to the location of the proposal within the residential property, impacts on the community with increased traffic and visual aesthetics. This representation has also raised other issues which are not material to this planning application. The proposal is to convert 2/3 of the existing detached garage located within Mansfield urban area to a beauty room to serve up to 5 customers per day. Given the scale of the proposal, it is considered that the proposed use would be incidental to the main use of the application site as a residential dwelling under use class C3, and that the application site is an appropriate location for the proposed development. The external alterations would be to replace the existing garage door on a like-for-like basis and to extend the existing driveway. It is considered that the proposal would not be harmful to the visual quality of the area. Turning to residential amenity, it is noted that a total of 2 meters of existing hedge is proposed to be removed on the southeastern boundary on the site to provide sufficient pedestrian visibility. There will be no less than 30 meters distance separating the front elevation of number 26, the closest neighboring property to the southeast from number 57, minimizing any overlooking impacts that would arise from the removal of the existing hedge. The proposed access into beauty room would also be on the northwestern side elevation of the garage, facing onto existing closed boarded fence. The car parking space allocated for the customer of the proposed beauty room would be located within existing front driveway of the property in close proximity to the proposed beauty room. It is therefore considered that the proposal and the removal of 2 meters hedge was not raising an acceptable loss of privacy impact. Given the detached nature of the garage, the separating distances to surrounding neighboring properties and scale of the development, with the operation hours and number of customers to be limited by way of plan conditions, it is considered that the proposal will not generate an unacceptable level of noise that would significantly harm the amenities of existing residents. According to the Highway Design Guide, dwellings with 4 bedrooms require a minimum of 3 or more parking spaces. The latest site layout plan submitted by the applicant demonstrates a total of 3 number of parking spaces for the dwelling and 1 number of parking space for the proposed beauty room. All parking spaces would meet the minimum parking space width and length, and that vehicles would be able to leave the site in a forward. There will also be sufficient pedestrian visibility displays. Conditions have been recommended to ensure the provision of the parking space as well as pedestrian visibility displays. To conclude, it is considered that the proposed development to change the use of 2/3 of the existing detached garage into a beauty room is acceptable in principle, would not have adverse impacts in terms of visual amenity of the dwelling, amenity of the neighbors, as well as highway safety, and will be in line with the adopted Mansfield District Council local plan. Therefore, the application is recommended to grant planning permission subject to conditions. This photo shows the existing front driveway, which would be extended over the grass area to provide more parking spaces. And then if we go to the next photos, this photo shows the detached garage and closest property on the other side of the road from the front elevation of number 57. Thank you.
You have, we have no speakers on this one. So, members have any questions of the officer? Councillor Tempest Mitchell.
I know that we're always told that we should only focus on the application in front of us, but last time round, if I remember rightly, we gave permission for 1 year for a dog, a small daycare, doggy daycare. Why wouldn't we do that with something like this to make sure that the applicant is sticking to the terms, etc., and then there isn't too much traffic, for want of a better word, for other residents in the area?
Yeah, I think the doggy daycare application that you're talking about had more potential issues in terms of noise that we felt it justified to grant a temporary consent as opposed to the sort of permanent application. It's considered in this case that the proposal is acceptable, and therefore there would be no need to actually grant a temporary consent in this circumstance, because we don't think as officers it's going to create detrimental issues.
Just to add to that, I think historically when these things sort of took off, I would say, I think at that time we probably did put the conditions even on something like this temporary, but over the years we've had quite a few come before the council, and they're all, well, my memory, I can relate, have had no issues with this kind of use operating from their house. So just on experience and knowledge of that type of operation, they don't tend to cause problems because possibly they need the customer lost early as well. So yeah, it's just based on experience of these that have got come before the council previously.
Got the questions? The proposer for the motion, Councillor Stevenson, Councillor Swinscoe. We're in debate, does anyone want to comment? Councillor Stevenson.
Just a very simple comment on this one. I know someone who ran a very similar business, vacation type of thing from the space in their garden, and in terms of impact on people nearby, there was never any complaints. There was very little impact. Someone didn't even know that she did that. So I think in terms of some of the comments that have been received from the public, I think can be released. There's more of a nervousness about how things might turn out rather than based on the reality of how they often do. And so I've got no real issue supporting this application.
Comment? Councillor Swinscoe.
I think my only concern with things like this is that it's a residential area, and a lot of houses in their deeds have a covenant to say that you can't run a business from a residence. Now we don't know, and it probably won't make any difference to a planning application, but it was there for a reason originally, that people are not running businesses from their homes. That's my only worry. Yeah, the chances are there's only going to be one client there at a time, probably. Although it's in a cul-de-sac, so if there was anybody waiting, probably going to get some complaints, I suppose, from neighbours. But that's my only concern, really, that it's a residential area, and some would say you could stay a residential area, because if everybody had a business like this on that cul-de-sac, it would be too busy.
Any further comment? With that,
I think my concerns are like with my colleagues, it's the time. And my colleague just said, I think there might be an overlap for somebody coming in. So if you're looking at parking, but it's just it's the adhere to the hours. And that's my main concern. We all know that time moves on, but there will be restricted parking. I know that area quite well, and it isn't that like the traffic. So if you do go and overlap, then you're going to have parking problem. Thank you, Chair.
thank you. Yes.
Yes, so just to clarify a couple of things that were mentioned there. So in terms of deeds do say a lot of things, for example, not to do a business. I don't think they're put in there with any great intention behind them. I know mine say I can't have a shed, but I've got one. I'm sure lots of other people have as well. So, and they are private, yeah, and they are private matters as well, obviously not for the council. So, and that's, I can point about parking. I think from the plan on screen, I think they've got plenty of parking, and they are limited to only 5 in a day. So I think the chance of any being any more than 1 or 2 at any one time is pretty limited. So in the scale of things, I don't think it's going to tip the balance between being a household use and being a nuisance. So yeah, I wouldn't be unduly concerned in that aspect.
I'll have to take your word on that, Martin. I've never been to a beauty.
Clarify that I haven't either, just for the record.
Yeah. Are there any further comments? No? We'll take that to the vote then, please. All those in favour of the officer recommendations, please show. Any abstentions? Any against? No, that's unanimous. So, plan application reference 2024-0376. POU, partial change of use, 2 to 3, floor plan, with a detached garage, use class B3 to a beauty room, with cameras, Winfield Road, Mansfield has been granted. Thank you. On to agenda item 6, plan application reference 2024-144, change of use for the first and second floors to a 2-bedroom apartment and rear extension to provide new stairs enclosure to the first and second floors. Can I invite the officer to make a report, please?
Thank you. Does the sound okay on this one? Any questions? I'm good. Okay, just to update the planning committee on just the late representation that's been received. So the report outlines that there's been 5 presentations. So there are some photos that have been provided that I will just comment on briefly at the end of these slides. I'll read this representation out because it's fairly short. So it just says it just reads as follows. It just says, good afternoon. Further to the comments made on the planning application, Mr. Mustafa intends to rent the flats to the employees, and then underneath, I think it just says they have no rights of access to the door. The area at the back of 141/141A is occasionally used for parking, as it's almost impossible to park legally after 5. This would cause fire risk should planning be approved. There are many instances of parking issues on Talbot Street and Nottingham Road where the police are involved. This is ongoing with NCC and VIA being involved. Attached to a few instances of the problems I have in the street as a whole. So whoever thinks it's not going to cause a problem should rethink. Gets as Councillor North has already been involved with these issues for quite a while. Regular double parking and parking on double yellow lines of the pavement. So I regularly get 20 cars blocking the access to my front door. And nothing but abuse. Is this acceptable? Is this acceptable as a council to with regard to the fire hazard of being held prisoner in my own property or not being able to access my own property? So for regards, and then signs off. Most of the issues from a planning perspective on highways being addressed in the report. I think there's a couple of things to note. So just on the 141A, that's the property that's kind of just on the edge of the corner, sort of around roughly where the photo was taken. With regard to fire risk, it's unclear what they're actually referring to here. I'm not sure how parking in principle would cause an issue. I think maybe they're referring to access to emergency vehicles. It's unclear the access that they are referring to. I think it's not. I don't think an emergency vehicle couldn't access any of the side areas, let alone as at the moment. So I don't quite get what the relevance of that is. But I think the material planning issue is changing these to a flat. So it's unclear as to what that's referring to. So we didn't, beyond what's already been addressed in the report, I didn't see that as material to the report in front of the committee tonight. So just go over the main planning issues. So principle of development is largely similar to the first application. The site's located within the principal urban area. So Nottingham Road is the primary arterial road into Mansfield Town Centre. It's within walking distance of both town centre, the town centre key amenities, and I think there's numerous bus routes that are provided, so it was considered to accord with policy S2. The site is identified as a local centre, so that aims to preserve the vitality and viability of the commercial units on the ground floor. This application relates to the upper floors of the unit, which I think is currently serves the barber shop. That would be unchanged. I think the applicant seems to suggest that it's going to be used for an employee of the barber, so if anything, it would be supporting that function. So there's no harm when to the local centre when considered against policy RT8. As far as technical material considerations go, the main one by far will be the impact on highway safety. So the way to probably frame this for members would be to think about 7 Leighton Avenue, which came before the committee last month. That was an 8-bedroom HMO and it's sort of similar type of location, similar levels of on-street parking. The converse here is this is a 2-bedroom flat, so taking the key test, no objections being received from the local highway authority on this proposal. It's acknowledged that there wouldn't be any dedicated on-street parking, but there aren't much of the locality is restricted parking anyway. So anyone breaching parking restrictions does so in contravention of regulations that are already there. The 2 tests for planning applications are an impact on highway safety and cumulative impact. No objection from the local highway authority has been received, and it was considered that a 2-bedroom flat wouldn't have a cumulative impact, it wouldn't pose a risk to highway safety. The highway authority have only referred to their standing advice, which is the parking standards, which, as has been discussed before at this committee, it's that most of the other upper floors on this street have been converted already to residential flats. So it's unclear how this would deviate from that pattern, and the cumulative impact of one flat would fall, in our view as officers, well below that of what would be severe. So it's considered the proposal would cause undue harm to highway safety or a cumulative impact. And there would also be cycle storage provided, I think, or space for cycle storage within the flat itself. As far as living conditions, is mainly the other material consideration. The only real alteration that's external would be a very, very small 1.8 metre rear extension. I'm not sure if it's on the other one of the elevation plans. It's only 1.8 metres in. I'm not sure which one it is, sorry. But it's a very small first floor rear extension. It's a very small scale. The concern with respect to this is very minimal. The views that are afforded by the flat will be almost identical to what is outstanding. So we didn't feel that it would cause any undue harm to living conditions in terms of the occupation of the flat. There have been some concerns about the impact raising representations during the construction phase, much the same as the previous application. That is a standard construction hours condition. But I mean, beyond it would be much similar. The actual scale of the construction works will be very similar to that of a household extension, but arguably less because it was the interior refurb, which doesn't require planning permission in itself. So for those who didn't feel that the impact would be unacceptable in that regard, all of the material considerations considered, there were no concerns either. So for that reason, it's recommended the planning permission is granted subject to the conditions outlined in the report. Thank you.
With that report, again, there are no speakers on this application. Do members have any questions with us? Councillor Jackson.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just a bit confused by one of the Labour comments where it talks about access door to the flat does not belong to number 139, but this is number 141. And I'm like, so can you explain that to me, please?
I think there might be a similar level of confusion on my perspective. So just for clarity, I'm the case officer's not been able to be here tonight, so I'm picking this up on his behalf. But I think on a primary basis, I would suspect the housing density in this area is very high. So shared access of some kind is, this is a very general principle, but shared access is not uncommon. All I would say is just as far as planning applications, the role of planning, as the committee knows, is to determine in accordance with the development plan. Issues with access when they're talking about 141 could be a shared access problem. I know Tom did clarify to me that the notice has been served on the adjacent property. But as far as access goes, it generally remains a private matter between parties. So the purpose of the planning application is to only accept the material considerations that are outlined in the report. So I can only offer general comments because it's unclear what they're referring to, but I would suggest it's a private matter and the high density wouldn't make shared access or access sort of issue uncommon. I don't know if that's helpful or not, but.
Is it like a shared access between two properties?
That's all I can assume. I don't know if Claire or Martin have picked up any different interpretation, but I would think it's a private matter. As I say, housing density is not common to cause these kind of concerns.
Yeah, as mentioned, they've said no, so I think that's the access there, so that will be a shared access, I believe, across the two properties, so, yeah, as long as it's served notice, then that's fine.
Any further questions? We have a proposer and seconder for the council members, Mitchell, councillor Stevenson. Can you make note any comments? No? Go straight to the vote then, please. Show of hands, all those in favour of the proposal? Any abstentions? Any against? No, that's unanimous. Planning application reference 2024-0414 for planned use of the first and second floors, the two-bedroom apartment and rear extension, provide new stairs and approaches to the first and second floors, has been granted the planning commission. Yeah. Move on to agenda item 7, which is planning application reference 2024-0361, out change of use of existing building to 2 7-bed, first and 7-person, larger HMOs, use of class sui generis, and 4 3-bed, 3-person, smaller HMOs, use of class C4, associated landscaping, 2 Westfield Drive, Mansfield. Like us to make the report, please.
Thank you, Chair. So this application was referred at the request of the Chair of the Planning Committee. So it's presented on that basis. There have been no recommendations from members of the public. The only thing that I'll discuss is just comments from the local highway authority. So this application relates to a currently vacant building that was formerly utilised as the known as Boothby Social Club. It's just located to the north of Mansfield Town Centre at the sort of the junction, or the access to the site would be the junction of just off Windhouse Road, just directly opposite the Northern Ring Road. I think key, so just to provide some context on this, so the building has gone through a number of, this is the second iteration of the planning permission really. The site was previously granted planning permission, I think in 2019 for a 24-bedroom care home. So that was never, I think, various discussions with the agent, clearly that was not really viable. So this has come forward as an alternative use. So the building is currently vacant, although the landscaping has been slightly revamped, but the building remains in itself vacant. So the layout, so it's listed as 6 HMOs. So really that, just to provide a bit of a breakdown for that. So you would have 2 larger units, which would function more like traditional HMOs, so 2 7-bedroom units. So they would kind of, let's say, be more similar to sort of 57 Leighton Avenue, would be more similar to that. The other 4 units, although they would be classified as HMOs, they would only be 3-bed. They would be more akin to 3-bedroom flats, although they have been proposed to fall within use class C4. Although, as I say, it's more likely you could see there's more, although they could be used as HMOs, they kind of look more like normal residential flats. Then, so combined, there will be 6 HMOs, but it would be combined to 26 bedrooms across, but it's more like 6 individual units rather than one giant sort of HMO in itself. Just so on the primary material planning consideration, so much the same has been discussed numerous times throughout tonight. It's centrally located site. It's within walking distance of all key facilities, Mansfield Town Centre, so it complies with the policy S2 relating as it's within the Mansfield urban area. It wasn't felt that the intensity of use on the site was inappropriate. The development complies with sort of all sort of key space standards, so there was no concerns there. The key policy with regard to HMOs is policy A7, so it's supportive in principle. So I'm just reading from the policy here. So it says development proposals relating to multiple occupation of buildings, including apartments, bedsit accommodation, will be supported where it would A, be appropriate in respect of the characteristics of the site, including whether the proposal would result in the reuse of a vacant building or disused land in accordance with wider regeneration benefits. The proposal is bringing a vacant building back into use, so it would accord with that by default. Does contribute to the achievement of mixed and balanced communities, and then C, it says will provide adequate internal accommodation, and external private amenity space without causing significant adverse amenity or adverse impact on the amenity enjoyed by the occupiers of adjacent dwellings. So there's no external alterations proposed to the building, no extension, so it would be entirely interior or internal alterations. The only reason it needs planning permission is because it's a change of use. The soft landscaping has been largely established. I think on point B, it's particularly beneficial because it's not resulting in the loss of any existing. It's not an existing residential dwelling that would be lost. So it was kind of felt the building is currently vacant. It's had a previous permission for a care home, and that was never implemented. So there's a clear sort of town centre vitality benefit here. It's so close to Westgate, the primary shopping area, that was felt to be inherently beneficial. It's an inherent benefit of the scheme, even though obviously it's not like typical residential flat development, but it does achieve sort of the similar benefits without harming existing housing stock. So it was felt that the principle was acceptable. To sort of the main material planning consideration, which is arguably the main reason it's here tonight, is because so it was referred to the chairman due to comments from the local highway authority. So as has been stated for previous HMO development, the Nottinghamshire Highway Design Guide is, when it comes to HMOs, is very restrictive by virtue of requiring one parking space per bedroom, and then one parking space for every 3 bedrooms on top of that. So it would equate to a parking demand of 34 parking spaces. Now, given previous HMOs that have been before the committee and ones that have been granted under delegated powers, the provision of 34 parking spaces in a central location seems somewhat unrealistic, given that it would more bedrooms and users than the actual development, and given it's a HMO that it's considered sort of the socio-demographics would make it less likely that users would drive. No objection has been received in terms of sort of again the 2 key issues. The highway safety impact was considered to be acceptable. This on-street parking would be completely prohibited by the number of cars that are going along the ring road and by double yellow lines. So the only real contention here, there's cumulative impact also, again, similar to the care home previously permitted. If there's no concern, similar, again, probably a lower use than the former use of the social club, which I believe only had a small enough parking provision anyway. The consideration really was whether, so the highway authority were requesting 8 spaces. This scheme proposes 5, which would be, there's a condition to restrict the use of those spaces to almost like a pre-allocated basis, so it wouldn't just be a free for all. So it would almost be like a first come first served basis. They would, so any other parking would they kind of like you'd have to get some kind of on-street permit. But I think thinking about other schemes, it wasn't considered this would give rise to an unacceptable level of parking. Now, the discrepancy between the 8 and the 5 is, I kind of felt like I go into some detail on this in my report. It's about 30 of the report kind of goes over sort of what the key policies are and key constraints. It's largely an arbitrary concern, it seems, because it was based, the 8 spaces isn't based on any kind of modelling or any kind of assessment beyond the fact that the care home had 8 spaces with it. The number of problems with this is that a care home has to accommodate for both staff and visitors. Obviously, the users themselves wouldn't drive, but there's I thought there was probably a likely high demand given the staff and visitors visiting the site than from a HMO itself. So there's no other basis for requesting 8 spaces. I mean, we've seen applications granted in central locations with 8 bedrooms for 1 parking space. So this would be exceed that. Also, the layout from the previous parking space, it was quite, looking at it, it was a very cramped parking layout. The parking spaces were effectively cramped back to back, 5 and then 3 at the top of the layout of the site, and the bin storage was completely restricted behind. I wish I'd have included that on the slide, but the old parking layout for that care home, the bin storage could effectively be blocked by a car. So how that was, so this enables there's more space for vehicles in terms of deliveries and emergency vehicle access. That was actually seen to be a benefit rather than a detriment, given that there wasn't, again, the 8 spaces was an arbitrary figure. It doesn't seem to be based on any inherent modelling. It's accepted that the design guide is unrealistic in this case, and the report goes into that, so that's a consideration for members. So that was felt to be acceptable. As far as amenity concerns, again, like the apartments themselves, meet space standards. There's not a concern about overcrowded development. The 7-bedroom ones in particular would be, they're all based on one floor. They have shared living and communal spaces, but I believe they all have ensuite bathrooms. There was no concerns with the nationally described space standards, so it was felt that the amenity for the residents would be acceptable. There is some outdoor amenity space which would also provide cycle parking, enough for one space per room. So there's the level of parking, the level of cycling provision is probably above what I mean. It seems unlikely that every bedroom would have their own bicycle. I don't cycle much, but I don't see many bikes going around Sheffield. But beyond that, it wasn't so. And as far as the impact on adjacent properties, there's no external alterations proposed. The building's already there. There are residential units or on the streets adjacent, but they're not within close proximity. So it was felt that the actual impact would be negligible to no difference in the current use. As far as other issues went, again, surface water drainage would be addressed. I think as far as just the impermeable area of the site would be unchanged. But I think there's a condition restricting that. So again, there was no inherent concern about sewage as a building regulations matter. So for those reasons, it was considered. But despite the comments from the Highway Authority, the proposal is acceptable and would accord with the development plan as it stands. Just thank you.
Give you your report, Dan. I do have a speaker on this application. George Wayton. Right, come to the podium. Engagement with the applicant. Like to just do anything on. You've got 4 minutes, George.
This application seeks to bring a vacant building into meaningful residential use. That is of an appropriate nature and scale to the central location of the applicant site. It proposes 2 7-bed HMOs and 4 3-bed HMOs, focused at younger and single persons of Mansfield. HMOs play a pivotal role in the housing market. The section often focuses on misconceptions of the tenants who live in HMOs. HMOs are home to a wide range of people at different life stages, and when located correctly, can be a welcome addition to the housing market. The proposal clearly demonstrates this point. Firstly, it is a purpose conversion of an existing vacant building. This is important because the proposal is not attracting the local housing stock. Secondly, the proposal is on the edge of the Mansfield town centre, instead sensitively located away from traditional residential areas. To this point, no neighbouring objections have been received. In essence, we align the residential reuse of a vacant building without putting pressure on traditional housing, while still providing an attractive offer for those who may not need, want, or can afford to live in the traditional private housing market. The proposed development is an attractive offer to these groups of young and single persons because it provides an opportunity to live within walking distance of Mansfield town centre, with its shops, eateries, services, and excellent transport links. It provides a mix of 6 individual units with private entrances, akin to apartments, striking the balance between independent and communal living. Each room is en suite. Additionally, each room and unit has been designed to provide excellent living circulation with reference to space and licensing standards. These credentials further emphasise that the scheme is tailored to meet the specific needs of individuals who benefit most from HMOs, while providing an attractive and meaningful density of centrally located accommodation with the real potential to contribute to the local economy. Speaking of the local economy, the proposal brings several important benefits. It transforms a vacant building on the gateway to the town centre into a vibrant residential hub with ongoing maintenance and management, in turn boosting footfall and economic activity within walking distance of local shops, services and public transport, giving residents immediate access to a range of local employment opportunities and transport options, enhancing further access to employment. In sum, the development provides centrally located accommodation, which has the real potential to contribute positively to both the local housing market and the local economy, while avoiding adding pressure to existing neighbourhoods, residents, or the existing housing stock. This model is especially attractive for those who are just starting out in their careers, saving for future housing, or working towards financial independence. The easy ongoing single persons need access to the right homes in the right places. With this in mind, the proposal is designed to deliver successful HMOs which achieve high quality living arrangements in a sustainable location with the ability to assimilate neighbouring residents and businesses. I respectfully urge this committee to approve this application, recognising the efforts made by the applicant to design an efficient use of the building to provide residential use which will bring wide benefits and avoid detrimental impacts.
Thank you, George. Do members have any questions of the speaker? Councillor Tempest, Richard.
Thank you for the presentation, that was very detailed. What sort of management system do you have to make sure that there's not too much, that it's not too lively a place?
So something I suggested to the case officer during the course of the determination of the application, this proposal in many ways is similar to purpose-built student accommodation. And with purpose-built student accommodation, typically you receive like a student management plan attached to that accommodation. So the applicant was keen to demonstrate this to the local authority. So we've agreed with the case officer that a management plan condition would be put in place. And that management plan, when it's submitted as part of the discharge condition application, will detail the allocation of car parking spaces. It will give the details of the managing agent for the building. And it will also provide the regime in which the managing agent will have to share their contact information with neighbours and neighbouring businesses. So if there's any issues, the managing agent can be contacted directly. So that's sort of all going to be contained within that conditional requirement. Thank you.
Any further questions? Thanks, Ian. Thank you, George. Members have any questions of the officers? No? So I propose the recommendation, Mr Stevenson, thank you, Councillor Bell. In debate mode, anyone want to make a comment? Councillor Stevenson?
I just want to sort of agree with the comments of the speaker. It's quite a refreshing change. Seeing HMO in a building like this one, but we welcome to see this building come back into use. It's nice to not really have anything to say or to question on something like this. So I'm very pleased to support the application, and the sooner it gets completed and done and people moving there, I think the better to bring that building back into use. So fully in support.
Any other comments? Councillor Tempest Mitchell?
I agree with Councillor Stevenson there. Can I just have one request? Before people move in, can the committee go look inside? Because obviously these HMOs are coming up more often, and it would be good to have a look at one empty, because just to sort of see the size and the space and the facilities that are in there.
Back on that.
Yeah, as long as it's not a condition of this, I'm quite sure informally, if the applicant's willing. Yeah.
Any other? Councillor Swinscoe?
I'd like to see it as well. You made such a good representation. You know, it is that you said as it's quite refreshing to see that is acknowledged that the issues that sometimes HMOs have. So we would love to see with all the praise.
Anyone else? Just had a comment. As you know, I brought this to the committee for that reason. I think it's been an excellent presentation. It's a large building for the Village Club, right in the middle of the town. It was an excellent presentation by the agent. There was nothing in it that would cause any concerns to members. And I think it was right that it came before committee to have a full hearing. Thank you very much for your report. With that, I'll move to the vote. Could people please show by hands? All in favour? Abstentions? Any against? And that one is unanimous. So planning application reference 2024-0361. And change of use to the existing building for 2 7-bed, 7-person large HMOs, use class beginners, and 4 3-bed, 3-person smaller HMOs, use class C4, associated landscaping, 2 West Hill Drive, Mansfield, has been granted planning permission. Thank you. I'll move on to agenda item 8, appendices of human rights and use classes of appendices 1 and 2. Can you all confirm that you've read them and you can note? Show of hands. Thank you, that's unanimous. Interested on use classes, that is. Agenda item 9, the planning appeals decisions, 19th of August 2024 to the 15th of September. There is one where the appeal was lost, dismissed. Can we note that, please? Show of hands. Thank you, that's unanimous. So, that concludes business for tonight. Thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you.